And joining me now is Congressman Raúl Grijalva, the chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee. Throughout his career in Congress, the chairman's been committed to defending wilderness areas and endangered species. In October, he unveiled his ocean-based Climate Solutions Act. Congressman, it's great to see you. I know we're on Zoom, normally we'd be in the same room. But look, I think one of the things we're probing today is what scaffolding, what structure and infrastructure conceptually do we need to put in place to look at conservation and environmentalism as a national security issue?
I think the premise, of anything we do in the next 2 years, next 4 years, with the Biden-Harris administration and Congress, has to look at it in a comprehensive way. That national security, with regards to conservation and with regard to climate change, are intricately tied together, and that juncture is important. Important for many reasons, economically, but in terms of just specifically national security, the threat that the ongoing climate change is posing to national security, whether that be on the facilities side of the question in terms of military bases, preparedness. Second of all, what it's doing on the economic and social side of it that puts national security pressure on the United States. All those things are, I think, woven together, and I hope that one of the first things that needs to happen is to ungag the Pentagon and military leadership in this country, so they can talk openly and freely about the effects of climate change, how conservation plays a role in assuring that national security continues to be not only a priority issue, but something that can be stabilized and constant. And if you don't do those other two, then national security is definitely threatened. And so hope that becomes the issue. And also, if we put science at the forefront of the decision-making around climate, around the environment, around conservation, then that'll also be a huge plus in reaching some decisions. And I think our national security apparatus can be a huge voice in moving forward an agenda, a comprehensive agenda on climate change.
Congressman, when you talk about in the environment, conservation, the climate, I'm in a privileged position. I get to talk to a lot of Republican governors, Republican mayors, Republican members of Congress and senators. Sometimes they're private discussions, sometimes public. And I can find a bunch of them who believe that this is an important agenda. Former Energy Secretary Rick Perry, was saying, from Texas, that they've increased efficiency of cars, lowered carbon emissions. So why is it so difficult to get bipartisanship behind some of these? Because I hear them, I talk to them, but I can still see the very stark political divide in the nation right now, where if you're an environmentalist, you're seen as on one side of the aisle, but not on the Republican side of the aisle.
Well, and to your point, that one of the reasons is that the issue of climate change became ideological. When you basically downgraded science as a component to that discussion, which has been done, then of course the discussion became more and more ideological and political, and the divide is there, and there's no question about it. But there's also, and I mentioned earlier, that the voices of the national security aspect of this, their leadership, their voices, their analysis, and their studies that they've done take us in a big step toward having a conversation that isn't muted by people's already set upon ideological beliefs. Climate change is real. I don't think the denial debate is over. Now what we have to guard against is the avoidance aspect, where we don't deal with the issue. And I think that national security interests for this nation will drive us to the point that we have to talk about this issue.
I know that you have worked across the terrain on environmentalism, national parks, the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, oceans. Many people look at the Biden administration as being, okay, the low-hanging fruit is let's just rejoin the Paris Climate Accords, box checked. What do you want to see the Biden administration do beyond rejoining the Paris Climate Accords?
Well, I think, let me use a couple of examples. The first one being that our nation's assets, their public lands and their waters, represent close to 30% of the solution or 30% of the problem in terms of climate change and global warming. And so beginning the transition to 30% of the solution, I think, is a very, very an important step that can be done by the administration. And beyond that, and there's things that can be done there. I think also the bringing forth of the science and the information around national security as an issue, I think adds to that argument. But I really think that there's a lot that can be done to correct some of the damage that's been done, and there's a lot that needs to be codified into law. Those two can work in tandem and get many things done. But I think the administration, by elevating the discussion to where it should be, I think will bring action. And I'm hopeful that there's a assertive and robust effort to deal with climate change with regards to those public assets of land and water.
Congressman, as we close this up, I want to ask you a personal question. I've read a lot
Sure.
about your statements and whatnot about conservation and environmentalism. The other day you retweeted something from your committee which said climate change, drought, and wildfire are pushing our forests to their limit. And you went through
Yes.
What I know from reading this is that this is a really big personal issue for you, and something I don't often get the chance to is it's not a big personal issue for everyone. Why is it? What leap have you made that you'd like to share with our viewers today? As I think understanding why you're so personally committed, that human part of it may be useful in helping people understand why the policies are so important.
I believe that environment, conservation, are across all demographic lines in this country and on this planet, and we're so dependent on that. It's a question of survival for our species as well, and that's the urgency I put behind it. And so what we can do now in this time frame to protect those assets for future generations, to enhance the survival of our species, and to make this a more livable world for the future, I think we can do things now. And if we don't do things now, then we're leaving a worsening situation one generation after another. Right now, we have an opportunity for recovery. 5-10 years from now, everything we do will be triaging a problem that we can't deal with. And this is real, it's happening around us, and we as human beings have a great deal of control about how it goes in the future. So my feelings for it is personal, everything from justice issues to economic issues are all part of the environmental questions that's before us. And looming over at is climate change and what it is doing to us. And so I see that as an urgency that cuts across all demographics and all issues, and that we have to deal with it. I see it as an overriding and potentially for this country and the world, a bridge issue that can provide with some unity and Congress, some bipartisanship.
Well, Representative Raúl Grijalva, chairman of the House Natural Resources Committee, author of the Ocean-Based Climate Solutions Act, and author of so many other pieces, I thank you for your work and for your time and candor today.
Thank you. Very kind of you to invite me. Appreciate it.